Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are live recording Dino Man 48 versus This Is Jimmy in Gauntlet Stage C's opening match. The first opener, and immediately Jimmy is pulling 5 Masons to attack the scout. I don't know what the hell has possessed him to do that. But hey, here we are, of course, in our first match. Chronologically speaking, I think other openers were actually played before this one because this one required some scheduling, snafus to be resolved. But it is the first opener in terms of where it appears on the bracket. So very cool to see Dino Man against Jimmy, of course, our admin for this match, Smarty Cakes, and we have none other than Brainstorm selected as our first map. Crisis Vector will be map 2, and if we need another one, it'll be Blackwater Bastion, with a bunch of the other Force Bomb maps and Radium and Kingwa Valley being vetoed, so no surprises there. The Maverick is going to get into the mineral line here, and maybe some... oh, no, never mind. I was going to say maybe it would do some damage. That was an opening salvo of 4 Droleth hits. So I think at this point it's very clear that that Maverick is dead. 2 rights. Now, I'm not even sure the Maverick actually saw the pool being made, but that's all right. No worries there. A very fast stockade turned into a second one that's a little bit more on the delayed side. And of course, Jimmy had that weird move where he just pulled 5 workers to attack the enemy worker. I don't know what he was thinking. The weird thing is sometimes Jimmy seems to get into flow state where he just games, man, and he builds a ton of units and he A moves, and I don't know what exactly is the difference. His level of play can sometimes vary very wildly. It feels like sometimes it's almost like a straight up different player. And I know that obviously the Night Fox, impersonated him a couple of times, but I'm not talking about that level of different player. It's just more like sometimes I'll see Jimmy play much below his, where I've seen his level in other worlds. I'm not seeing him pull 5 Masons in every game, right? So that's sort of what I'm talking about there. I don't know what was going on there. Anyway, not to over-index on one move that I saw. Everybody can be goofy in this game. It is a game that facilitates the goofiness. We got a Vestry coming in for the second stockade. It is going to block the Ministry add-on, so we know that there's not going to be any Ministry add-on coming without having to self-destruct the Vestry add-on and lift off the stockade at some point, so SMH. Back when It Depends was playing a lot, he was really hoping I would allow Trojans to pick up add-ons, which was originally a plan, by the way. But now that structure unloading is a lot better, a lot more it doesn't just unload on unbuildable terrain all the time, and it's not as bad as it was prior to that, thanks to a bounty from Lundier of all people. Big surprises there, but yeah, it's working. It's working, and so I think that makes perfect sense in the context of maybe we should start to think about add-ons can be picked up by transports. Now, I mean, the problem is if you unload it next to the stockade, I don't know that you're actually going to get the add-on attached. That's the other concern there. So I guess we'll have to see together. I'll find out together if it works out. Zorka is on the way for Dino Man, and he's going to go ahead and expand as well. Dino Man's another player who I don't necessarily think of as he's not a world beater. He's not going to come out here and, it would be a big shock if he qualified into the Battlements stage, but I still like to see where some of these players are at. It would be a big shock if Jimmy did as well. This is Gauntlet Stage C, so this is our last chance saloon for those players. And, I actually thought there could be a real big brawl for some of the spots, particularly the lower bracket spots in this event. But since the Gauntlet Stage C bracket is now finished, we know exactly who is participating. We've got the Night Fox as Protoss. We've got Art of Turtle as Zerg. We've got Doglived as Protoss. And Smarty Cakes has switched from Protoss to Zerg last Gauntlet stage. And now in this one, he is Terran. So I don't even know if he's still the actual seed number 4 in the event. But what I do know is while, AOT, Night Fox, Doglived, they haven't been very well practiced. I think Doglived still thinks that you need to make a pylon instead of a Nexus, just using your Nexus, right? For a while, it took him a bit to realize that. So, there actually could be a world where you upset some of those players, but I still feel like they are definitely guaranteed locked to make it out, and we'll just have to see if we can have our minds changed on that. And Jimmy is coming in here with a pretty sizable attack force versus pure Quaz, and there are some Lakes starting to be made, but it might be a little bit before that actually manifests. The Shaman going to be very impactful here. Cleric also boosting the armor of the Hurakan while healing it, so temporarily as tanky as a Zealot versus these Quaz. Well, it seems like it's starting to fall to pieces here, but a stimmed set from the Mavs is going to help out, and yeah, deploying that Shaman definitely makes sense. Yeah, Jimmy might be able to be routed here after all, but then Dino Man decides to fall back. Is he going to sack this hatch? I think he's bought enough time for the Lakers to come out and finish the job on the army. We have a single Cyprian coming out here that's got 3 frags, so that's pretty cool, but yeah, I'm not really expecting this to go the way that Jimmy hopes it will, especially as that Lakers goes ahead and burrows. There's just not enough firepower to bring it down. The Cleric and the Blackjack, the Cleric and the Shaman trying to heal the Blackjack together, but that was not to be. And the Shaman will also go kaput as a result. So all of the rallying units need to cycle back to the natural that has 5 idle Masons, and Jimmy's lifting it. I thought he was going to evacuate, but instead he's just trying to put down the lodestone. That makes more sense. We've got the Fulcrum on the way, and of course the Star Pad is on the way as well. So very interesting indeed. By the way, I know this is kind of like sacrilegious to think about, but so Shopkeeper Dog was talking to SG, who is another player who is in this stage of the tournament. We might be able to see some of his games later, about the feature that we wanted to add where you can hold a shift to immediately place down the add-on without needing to confirm its placement. Of course, with quick casting enabled and quick building additionally enabled, it's still a little bit snappier, but it would be nice to not even have to worry about that, right? And so obviously he then trolled by saying, if there's not even any placement check, then it'll just be built over unbuildable terrain or building stacking, and then Terran will really have an era. And it made me wonder, maybe we should actually make it so that the add-ons like coexist with the structure. The only problem then is like figuring out, is it still a valid place to land afterwards? You know what I mean? Like if you make it so that the lodestone partially or fully collides with the ministry, for example, then you lift the ministry. Can you ever land the lodestone? I think maybe if you lift the structure off, the add-on has to either come with it, which would be pretty based, or be destroyed, which would be pretty jank. So I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but that's kind of a funny idea that I had, and maybe that's the new era for Terran. Maybe that's how they can win again, even though they won last Acropolis. Oh, big announcement regarding our champion, by the way. I'll probably save that announcement for a little bit later on. Maybe after we wrap up the qualification series, which I hope to cast with Neblime, actually. So with any luck, we'll be able to do that together. As of right now, Dino Man just kind of massing up for a bit of an attack. He's moving his Lakers around. The Anciel has come into the Zerg base and kind of scouting out the situation, sees that, Jimmy should know he's actually got more Masons, but he's got 6 idols, so maybe he doesn't have more Masons. Still more active Harvesters, a 7th idol as well. But he's setting up for a defense. He's got a Cestus for the nice little extra armor boost that it provides. Oh, the Anciel might get shredded here. Ooh, just narrowly escapes any hull damage, so that's nice. Making a lot of different things, Jimmy is, but, sometimes he'll make Wraiths, and I wonder what he's doing them for. However, in this level of play, I do think it works out to just kind of park them around the base. Now, Quazes are here on the main, and it looks like there will be a Spraith here in the natural, so it might not really matter that much, but, Zerg can obviously come down here and, perhaps more than others, benefit from the distance mining of these bases. The Brain Trusts, as I established they're called. We've got the Brain Drains and the Brain Trusts. That's what we've got, is the choke point here into the natural, and then the treasury choke point. And when you destroy the Brain Trust, it no longer is there anymore. It's just a spot. But I like that. I like the idea of having map callouts in Cosmonarchy maps. I think that's a very good one. Really, honestly, very pleased to be on Brainstorm again. I just got to say, shout out to Dino Man for picking that. Shout out to him for scouting with one of the most expensive units Zerg can have when he had Quaz and Zeth sitting right here as well. That was really good. I'm sure, our admin, again, is Smarty Cakes for this match, and so I'm sure Smarty was very pleased with that. Now, the Wraiths come out, and actually, with the Anciel, that's pretty clever. 3 Wraiths end up picking off the Lake is somewhat fast, so you got to respect that. Hold on, maybe Jimmy's actually innovating. Has his own ideas here. Now, you can go really heavy into Wraith stack. You can add a bunch of extra star pads. He's going to go for a second one, in fact, as we speak. And he lifted something off. I'm not quite sure what it was. I missed it. Oh, okay. He's adding more star pads down here. He's got 7 idle Masons. I don't know what he's doing with them. And his ministry for the 3rd base is on the way. Another stockade. His base layout is very weird. And we've got tier 2 on the way as the 3rd base is complete for Dino Man. So Hydra's Den coming up as well. He is going to see about maybe attacking. You just can't fit all of these units through there, dude. It's just not possible. They will be brain drained. Would love to see the Phalanxes kind of move up to this position. Obviously, you got to watch out for the Lakes counterpunch, but, right over here should be fine, and you can really push that force back. Suddenly, Dino Man will be in a really difficult position. The Avaleth and the Quads are over here, but they're not actually seeing what's going on, and now more Wraiths arrive to clear out more Lakes. So very crafty play here from Jimmy, it has to be said. Respect it. The 1 Lakes arrives to heckle the 3rd base, and now the Wraiths are going to fly over all these Quads. No! Okay, well, one of them takes almost fatal damage, but not quite, and just kind of sit by the Shaman. I wouldn't lift it off in this situation, though. I would just kind of path over here, kill the Lakes, and then see what you can do with the Wraiths after. Look at all these unprotected Drolets in the 3rd base. Sure, there's a Spraith in the natural, and there's the quad standing over there. I love that the Iris is about to finish, and he still makes the tier 1.5 node. You can skip the cost of that entirely, but go into the tier 2 node. Dynaman doesn't need that. He's rich, dude. He's rolling in it. He can just afford to do that kind of stuff. Taking a 4th base as well towards 12 o'clock. Our Zerg player still feels like they've got way more map control than Jimmy, but I like the idea of just a couple of Wraiths and an Antseal. Obviously, he invested a lot more into star pads and stuff since then, but if you just want to rock one star pad, I think you can force the Zerg to kind of stick their anti-air with their Lakers. You know, there's limited effectiveness, but it's a limited... it's also limited risk because you're only investing a single star pad's worth of production into it, right? So the one Lakers is going to go ahead and unburrow here. Does Jimmy respond? Does Jimmy know? The answer is no. Jimmy does not know. And look at this. Hug on the bottom of the map. Oh, yeah. Well, hot tamale. The Masons are starting to die. Oh, shit. Well, thankfully, he has started to attack the ones in the bottom. Where's the Antseal? There's no Antseal. I don't know where the Antseals are. They're all up at the front. Is he really going to make another Antseal instead of just taking one of the ones that he's already got? Hello? Jimmy? Jimmy, hello? Hello, Jimmy? 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 Hello? Jimmy? Well, Dynaman just had a hello Dynaman moment, but Jimmy, you're losing your sieve. Without that, you won't even harvest from your geyser. I don't know how that works, but that's something you do. Trying to get out of the brain drain. The lake is contained being broken. Still not mining from his main base, though. Dynaman stretching up ahead, very much so with the military, and now the Basilisks arriving at the front gates. That's definitely going to hurt. I can't believe it. All he needed was to take one of his Antseals and move it back here. That's it. That's all he needed. Some Calculisks are being made. Okay. Man, units are really confused. I'm really confused. Finally, the Antseal clears that out. Oh, heroic. Can get his men back to work. Really needed to secure that 3rd base, I feel like. Dude, I don't know what's happening in Jimmy's base, but it is spooky. And his units are slowly leaving the building and then exiting stage left entirely. A couple calcs on the way. It kind of worked to lure some units back, I guess. That kind of helps. All these Azira cores here. Could be Tets, but that would require him to build his tier 2 structure there. Upgrade the scab again. No harvesting at the 4th base, so nothing really to write home about there. This one Ovaleth with that one lake is shut down mining for what feels like 10 minutes, but it was probably only like 2. Still, I can't believe it. Trojan airlifting a bunch of Masons who are now going to build watchdogs to kill this Ovaleth because Dynaman is busy doing other things right now. He's got better things to do than to save his Ovaleth from taking damage from a single watchdog, which will not kill it. Unless it's on hold pause. There it is. Hi. Dude, you're letting him scout. Alright, now it'll die. That was hilarious. What a sequence of events. Dino Man has almost 4,000 minerals. He's got a bunch of calcs looking around. He's like, where is your base? What's going on? But his Ovaleth did end up scouting that ministry moving over. So it's kind of obvious now, and he's using a single Bactylisk to say, hey, what's up over here, guy? Turns out Jimmy does not have any units up there. Did not airlift them, elevator them with the Trojan. Did he make more than one Trojan, by the way? It doesn't look like it. Well, the Cestus was interrupted. Cestus, interrupt us. And now the Masons will fight the Bactylisk. You know, if you finished the Cestus and then fought the Bactylisk, it would actually be way better, but that's all right. Because, you know, you think about the armor. Ooh, decollided. Lodestone on the way. I can't believe what we're seeing. I was told to cast this series, guys. This was a recommended match. Tethvith Swamp now. Teth Zoracors have been upgraded in a way where they have the same stats as they used to. But when you attack them, you take a return strike in the same way that the Zarkavor passive works. So the same sort of reactive move there. This is still not finished. That one Quaz could go in and do some damage. Dynaman now going to step on that base. Capping his gas. His geysers in the main and nap. Not so much saturation on the 4th base. Now the Calculus is looking for something. Yeah, I think Dynaman forgot he's supposed to make units. Jimmy did not forget that, by the way. Jimmy is still making units. And the Calculists are going to shred those 4 Antseals. Still, as cost-efficient as that was, the real victory is stopping Jimmy from mining at another base, since he does not use his air units to reinforce his airborne position, and he never really wanted to move over here for some reason. He's making a bunch of Valkyries now, but most of the air units are already gone. In fact, there's only going to be like 2 calcs left. These Tethzoricors are about to hatch at his doorstep, and those could be problematic, as there's not really anything to protect all those phalanxes that are rather isolated. His units are once again rebelling. Man, maybe this is why you picked this map against Jimmy. You pick Brainstorm just because, like, it does take a lot of micromanagement to deal with this. You know what I mean? All right, here we go. See those little green dots? That's the bone projectiles hitting the enemy. Oh, the Tethzoricors are kind of being beaten back, but remember, they also have lifesteals, so if they're not actually being on the receiving end of a lot of damage, the Phalanx is doing so much here to hold this at bay. Is it going to be enough? We don't really have that many more units coming out of Dynaman, so it does feel like he's busy watching the fight or something. I'm not really sure what he's doing. He's waypointing the attack that cleared the third base. That'll probably be enough to break Jimmy's position, but he's got so many more units that he forgot about. He's like, oh yeah, I got all these. I got all my Masons that I never used. I know what you're probably thinking if you watched a lot of Cosmonarchy. Is this replay bugged? Guys, I don't think the replay's bugged. I think this is just how it is, man. But maybe it's bugged. No. No, the Ministry that floated into the middle of nowhere is now returning. I don't know, maybe Dynaman is in an alternate universe. He's got 10k minerals, he's just kind of looking around at nothing. What's happening here, boys? What am I witnessing? What am I watching? All right. What's up, people? We are back. Thanks for bearing with us. It looks like the replay was indeed broken. So now we're taking a look at a more functional version. Don't worry, it still looks deranged. But there was a Goliath and a Blackjack in this third base after all, so there was some effort at defending. Just didn't end up working out very well. Now, of course, the air units were routed, just as we saw in the previous take of this. A lot of ground units still sticking around there at that third base, though. Now we're going to see Dynaman try to move in. Remember, he's got all of these Tethzoricors mutating. We saw those indeed get activated. He's kind of charging a little bit ahead of time, but of course there's a big congestion, big ball of Jimmy units as he's attempting to respond to all of the threats. Now the Anseal's getting a little bit too close to the sun, it feels like. Remember, Calculusks will deal that splash damage, and now, oh, Jimmy's actually going to come out, and here come those Tethzoricors. See if they can't challenge all the Valkyries. Kind of getting caught up there on the Nathricors initially, so they don't actually splash a lot of the Calcs. No force targeting there from Mr. Jimmy, so he loses the air fight pretty handily, but he's still got plenty of ground units here. As the Teths start to fall, the units that attack the third base coming back in on the minimap, as we see, and Dynaman going for a whole host of Hydralisks, so probably another round of Bactyls coming at some point, but, you know, I feel like this army might have actually helped him break through. Now, that being said, there's still a lot of Phalanxes, right? So, hard to be very definitive about that. I saw he made an Alcag. And take a look at his base. We haven't seen his base for a while, but all the action's been on the other side of the map, but, you know, he's got 4 mining bases. And the Alcag Etethia is indeed up. So it feels like some Almax would be really good here. They're very good at, like, just picking a target and punching through it. There's only really a lot of Phalanx. There's not really any splash damage here for Jimmy. He is remaking his Valks, though. He still has not noticed that all of these Masons are idle. That's one of the first things that I thought was weird, and maybe the evidence of, like, a busted replay, but, you know, then I thought maybe it's just Jimmy being Jimmy. But, yeah, he is definitely a bit idle here. He could try to retake this area with some air units if he had any. It's just Valks, though, so nothing that can shoot back at the ground. Bunch of workers waiting for a hatch to be ordered at top left. And now the Bactylisks are kind of getting encroached upon as Jimmy's looking to leave his base once again. I'm not going to lie, it looks really dire for Jimmy. I feel like even if he ends up pushing out of his base, I guess there's a chance that he can maybe try to send a couple of stray units to some of these bases and attack it, but, I mean, he can't secure a third base. He's not been able to land here. He's landed here a few times only to get it owned, so it feels like he really needs to secure more money. That being said, he has a humongous amount of minerals in the bank, and he hasn't reset his gases in the NAT, or in the main, rather, so that's probably the biggest issue, and he has found all those Masons. He's going to go ahead and pull them up over here. Remember, you can return to these treasuries, the Brain Trust, as we call them now. So we'll see if he ends up depositing his money there. Instead, he's kind of... Oh, he's going all the way to the top left. Well, that's where there's a base being taken. So we'll see if Dino Man responds to that. Minimap awareness not always immediately the strongest suit for some of these players. And yeah, it does look like the Treasury... yeah, the Brain Trust is going to be taken down a peg. Smacked by Dino. All right, so if we look at the tech... I mean, Dino is definitely in a winning position here in a lot of ways. But Jimmy still has an army, and he still has bank. Not quite able to get to tier 2 anytime soon. I know he would love to have a bunch of cataphracts here. And is this the attack that finally breaks him? His Phalanx is only now sieging. Still could be a really nice fire back here. The Anseal's staying alive for a very long time. Their shield's only now being broken, but the Bactylisks have a field day with those Phalanxes in the back. No armor on them when they're in siege mode. The Bactylisks will reign supreme. And there you have it. I mean, that's really a crushing blow there for Jimmy. He still has a couple of Phalanxes scattered about, and all of his Masons are killing the hatch. Oh my god, the Worker Uprising. I mean, we gotta watch this, right? I know there's a battle going on, but just, can you believe it? It's unbelievable. Dino Man making 15 calcs to reinforce the Cestus, reinforcing the armor of this Goliath so much, so all of those units end up getting shellacked, but I mean, look at this. You just don't have any anti-air, you don't have any splash. And the Vespene, very, very low here for Dino. He actually has enough to get an Atlas, Jimmy does. And his battle workers are battling. That is ridiculous. I can't believe that's what's happened here. Well, here comes the calc stack. And again, we don't really have any splash damage here. All the Valks went down in the last fight. He hasn't made any more since. GG is called. Jimmy cannot hold on. And that, my friends, is a wrap. Yeah, okay. Very bizarre match. But what else did I expect when it comes to Dino Man versus Jimmy? Dude, what else could I have expected? Another shout out to Smarty for sending me fixed replays after the fact so that we could get to the bottom of that particular match. That was bizarre. Glad to see it wasn't as deranged as I maybe thought it was. But still, some things to think about. Let's go to game 2. Poor Jimmy is now down 1 map versus Dino Man in the top left here of Blackwater, Bastion. Oh no, this is Crisis Vector, my mistake. Forgot the veto again. You know, that's something that we'll have to just remember. Just after a blazing, blistering game, it's just hard to remember all that. I think Dino Man is Neon Carrot. No, he's Mango. Okay, well, he was fruit and vegetable. Some would call that the same food group. The one I don't eat. No, I'm just kidding. I actually have a lot of vegetables. And a decent amount of fruits. I like bananas. I got blueberries. Trying to think if there's any others that really top the charts for me. Technically, tomato is a fruit. And I do like a good BLT or whatever, you know, so... I guess you count that, but most people think of tomato as more of a veggie. Anyway, Dino Man is going to be Mango, and he's in the bottom right. Of course, Jimmy, the dim gray. Aaron, always dim gray. That's his preferred color. So I feel like Jimmy is certainly capable of taking down players of Dino Man's caliber, right? I mean, I did seed these two players very close to each other, right? And that last fight, I mean, okay, it's Dino Man's map pick, right? So on the one hand, you think to yourself, maybe it's just not meant to be on that map. Maybe Dino Man had a strat. But even then, even though Dino Man did take a very long time to finish the job, you imagine if you try to make a couple of alterations, adjustments, maybe you try to expand to that high ground area where he had that final fight that really set back all of his phalanx count and took care of the rest of his army as well. Around the Brain Trust. Oh my god, he's canceled the stockade. Oh, he did it intentionally. He's going to expand. Okay. All right. I got really worried. He's gone through, and I guess he hasn't scouted all the Zeths coming in from a 6 pool, so he's like, all right, whatever. I'm just gonna do that. There's Rilla Rokor is already waiting for him here, as it has been Larvosk, Cool, Kagrant. Interesting. Bit of a lackadaisical build here as the Maverick stays behind the mineral line. You really want to be moving, because I think if he had done a little bit of micro there, he would have been able to kill a worker. Dino was very lackadaisical. Like, better Zerg would just, like, burrow the worker that's being attacked or pull it away or whatever. Burrowing is probably a little bit better, even though, in theory, it is harder for you to remember to unburrow it later. But if you can remember that, then that ends up being pretty good. Anyway, he has forced a circuit. This is not going to be a Larvosk. I mean, there's no Vespene for it anyway. But, you know, a little bit of pressure applied. I find that if people are looking for advice on how to win games and you're around this level, even a little bit better, a little bit worse, I do tend to find that, like, you can really upset a player's concentration if you just heckle them a little bit. Now, like, players who are a lot more experienced and a lot more skilled, if you do something kind of silly that, you know, pranks them a bit, they're just going to be like, that was weird, and then go back to normal, right? But And Jimmy does not want to fight this, by the way. The Circuit is... he was never going to make it past all of those quads anyway, but even without the Circuit. But the Circuit definitely means turn back around. Anyway, as his Ministry is up, looks like maybe Jimmy's used to having more units, right? Like, he's not used to expanding first. I wonder why he decided to do that. The quads are now going to come across the map. He should have enough to defend if he gets a couple more Mavericks. I'm a little bit worried that he has mostly Huracan right now. Ahmed, good unit, but you do need the Mavs to be stimmed so that you can actually make things happen. He's actually pulling that Mason away. I wonder, is he having a premonition that he will soon be attacked, or... No, I don't know. That guy was just on a weird mission. But yeah, to sort of finish up what I was saying there, I love that Dynaman's scouting ahead. He will obviously be a little bit under strength for his quads count, but that's fine. And now he's actually going to be able to clear out a Mason or two. So a little bit of eco harassment. I mean, it doesn't really matter here. Plenty of stimmed Maverick DPS to clear out these quads. Some of them were busy attacking the Ministry as well. If you're a mathematician, you can figure out how much damage was actually soaked up, because you got to factor in the armor of the Ministry, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out because I feel like the overall, the way that you can really prank a player at this level is just by doing a drop or kind of pulling their attention somewhere else. And if they already need to spend a ton of their focus, a ton of their attention as a resource, right? Which it is a resource for sure, to micro their army, to especially if they've got a technical army. Most Terran armies are pretty technical. You think about the Phalanx, you think about the Madrigal, you think about the Shaman. These are units that you do need to micromanage a little bit. And obviously, if you think about like Mavericks and Huracans, it's more about pre-positioning and making, remembering to stim. That's a bit easier to remember to do. But if you screw up on your positioning, it's a lot harder to be solvent afterwards, because your units are just going to be dead. So at that point, Dynaman would just run away with it because he's got the Lake is out already. But I do think that there's something to the idea of trying to split people's focuses. You heckle them in one spot and then you drop in another, or you try to do some kind of harassment move, even with a couple of flyers. Obviously, as Zerg, it's a bit cost inefficient to invest a little bit into harassment. I think it's probably underutilized to some degree, but maybe not so much at the top level. I think that's a bit more solved. But when we're talking about this level, I absolutely think that, like, Jimmy going for the star pad here is promising. If he can get a Trojan out and just drop a squad of bio in the main, he could probably run roughshod over some other spot. At the very least, he could focus his micro and attention on another spot while he knows his opponent is busy trying to deal with this thing that is kind of automatic. Kind of. If they pull the workers and the workers end up getting chased by all of your drop, then your drop might just die because it falls into the static defense or whatever, but something to think about there. As we get a little bit deeper into the game, we've got the sieve coming up over here for Jimmy's main base. And it does look like he is going to go for Mass Wraith. A lot of Wraiths queued up. I think that's enough Wraiths that maybe not for Vespian cost, but I feel like that's probably enough that you can just go for another star pad. If he wants to go Mass Wraith, which I think it worked really well versus the Lake is on Brainstorm. You have to remember, I think that kind of strategy is something that potentially, if Terrans expect it or scout the Zorkas early enough, they might be able to invest into that themselves. I do think that, like, Wraith, Anseal, with some Valk support as well, is actually almost like, I want to say, borderline meta. You know what I mean? It's certainly a strategy that has been practiced. So he already has the star pad. He can scout out those Lakis spines without taking any damage. I would love to see him stay a little bit further forward so he knows when the enemy army is moving out. We'd have a single Lakis dropping again. Remember how much damage that did on Brainstorm. I shudder to think of it. He has now cleared his queues and he got the Anseal set up. So I am a little bit worried that this is going to hit at a really bad time for the Wraiths to help out. But at the very least, the Masons can try to sacrificially stand on top of it and see how much damage he can do. He's pulling the Masons very quickly, which I do appreciate. It doesn't look like he tasked them on a mineral line field, so they're not going to stack up. And now trying to pull them away. No micro from Dino Man there to try to do more damage to the worker line. There's a couple of very red Masons that could have been heavily damaged. But, you see how much attention that soaked up when Dino Man really all he did was, like, burrow it here, unburrow it here. And, that's essentially, you can queue a lot of those actions up. Not the unburrow into burrow, but you can certainly queue up the burrow. You just right-click, hold shift, queue up the burrow command, and then deselect the unit. Unfortunately, if you then give it another order, it will automatically burrow on site because StarCraft 1's engine was not meant for certain actions to be queued. But we've done our best. As quirky as it is, we've done our best to make it so that players can learn how to work around those quirks. Anyway, the reason why I bring all of that stuff up is because that's pretty easy for Dinoman to do. That took a lot of a response from Jimmy. So I do love that he immediately responded with the Antseal. Now it is up. He can absolutely move forward. He's got a very fearsome bio army. Mostly just Quas here. A couple Zoryus. Absolutely doable here for the bio army. And look at this, at third base. Way better worker count here for Jimmy. He's a little bit undersatted at the natural. He has no Geyser Harvesters, for example. I think that's the main thing. Oh, he's got no Geyser Harvesters back at the main either. I think he's maybe forgotten about that. As long as he doesn't have a really bad time with his main army, I think he's okay here. Big Burrow as Lake is hatch, and well, only one of these anchors is actually staffed. He's going to go ahead and engage. Watch out for that Antseal. It might get sniped by the Quas. Jimmy does realize. I would love to see him actually stem these Mavericks again, because they are going to run out of their stem, and the Lakers are burrowing now. He needs to be splitting these, or at least falling back from this fight so that he can fight again, but he looked away from the army and saw just how many Lakers there were. He has a big effort of expanding really fast, but this comes at the cost of his ability to defend this attack, and honestly, there's a degree to which it feels like if the Lakers just push in to this spot right here, they can clear this out, and Jimmy will be cracked wide open. Let's see, we're getting a couple of Cyprians. We're mostly getting Hurricanes. It feels like we need more stopping power than that. I think maybe what Jimmy has messed up here as he pulls his Wraiths back, which is very advisable versus the Lake is it, I mean, he's not dead yet, but it feels like it's pretty close. He's teetering on the edge. Obviously, it would be great for him to be able to spend down his money a little bit more, and we saw him make more stockades off to the third base, but he's now got to wrangle this very difficult situation, and he has no advanced add-on, right? He has no Covenant, and he has no Fulcrums to make, Phalanx with after our Palladium add-on. So it feels like he's got no Savants, he's got no Eidolons, he's got no Phalanx. Those are tools that he could use at tier 1 to try to deal with this, or instead he's just making a Fulcrum in the natural where it's most likely to be popped by an aggressive move. I guess technically you could say he's got the Wraiths. Those can be helpful, but it feels like he needs to do a little bit more than just that, especially with all the Quas coming out here. And what is Dinoman's reaction? Just to make more Quas right now. He's sticking it out on 2 bases. Not quite an all-in, but certainly a situation where he's very committed. Again, he's got Masons in this anchor. They're not going to help you. You can't fusion cutter your way from the anchor. Ahmed trying to get in to help on this right-hand side, but I don't think those Hurricanes are going to be of much use. The Lake is, most of them not even burrowed. Now they're going to come out. Wraiths trying to play around the extremities. They know the Quas will take care of them. If we had more Cyprians to deal with the Quas, the Wraiths could clean up all the Lakers. Even still, a lot of Masons going down. Jimmy still has a pretty nice worker advantage right now. His economy is off the charts. He could be harvesting more Vespine for sure. But besides that, still looking pretty good. Now the Wraiths, it doesn't look like any of them, maybe one of them died here yet. But other than that, some Cyprians coming out of the stockades off to the side. The Lake is burrowing a little bit further forward. Love to see the Wraiths be invested in a little bit more, but again, he's only got the 1 star pad. It's hard for him to do anything with it. And so, yeah, it feels like the Lake is, yeah, he's going to call it. I guess I understand why. I do think that this situation was a little bit more salvageable than it probably seems, but obviously there was a ton of Quas coming for reinforcements, and at that point, the Wraiths can't do anything. That's too bad. I feel like Jimmy had some real potential in Game 2. The problem is he got a big bio army, but when there's that many Lakers out, you have to be stalling them. It's kind of like the inverse of when Protoss are trying to defend from the Phalanx push. And, you know, in StarCraft 1, you think about Dragoons and Zealots defending versus the tank push and just trying to stall out until the Zealot leg enhancements finish. At that point, that upgrade will kick in and they can do something. It's kind of like that for Terran. If you're caught without a transition point, you don't have Mass Wraith, you don't have Covenant, you don't have Palladium, well, you're going to be kind of SOL when it comes to dealing with that push. So Dinoman moves on in the opener. I'm glad we got to see a very deranged Brainstorm game. It's a bit more straightforward, but hopefully a learning opportunity for everybody who watched on that Crisis Vector match there. And GG's. Of course, there is a double elimination situation that we got ourselves in. So Jimmy now falls to face... it's a loser of whoever, basically, most likely, whoever goes up against Art of Turtle. But Art of Turtle is seated up ahead of a match. So we got a little bit of time before that match shows up. Maybe I'll cast it, maybe I won't. We'll find out. But join us for more Cosmonarchy soon. I will catch you guys next time. Peace.